This feels inappropriate. The story of Van. 1. A month or so after COVID lockdown started, I went insane. Lockdown wasn't good for anyone. For me, it was certainly better than most. I had one job, which was entirely remote, and my other job was paying all of its hourly employees to stay home. My income didn't change. I didn't have to worry about debt. And I never got COVID, so I didn't have any health issues to worry about. I had a cat. She hated everyone other than me, so she was living the dream. But I was lonely. I tried to imagine myself as a voyager on a spaceship traveling far across the solar system, confined to a small space but with all the possible entertainment I could want. Video games, books, TV. I could talk on the phone or video call other people. It was a vacation, I told myself. I could use this unexpected gift of free time to write or paint or, God forbid, get into shape. What I couldn't do was touch another person. Yes, I know that being trapped with other people for months on end was no picnic. My friends in relationships assured me that they too were going mad. Every crack in a marriage magnified, every annoyance at a child echoed. Humans are social creatures, but we also need time to be alone, to process, to simply enjoy silence. But there was nowhere to go except outside, where it was only seen as polite to cross the street when someone else approaches, pretending to be alone on a sidewalk in the middle of the day. I suppose you could claim a room all to yourself, lock the door, put in earplugs, and pretend to be alone. But they weren't alone. I didn't have to lock a door. My entire apartment was only for me. They had people they could hug and kiss and make love to, and I had myself. Masturbation only gets you so far. 2. I love mail. I love postcards, especially because they are such a small, defined space. You can't say everything you want, so you have to make sure the few sentences you have are interesting. I hate writing letters by hand because I'm compelled to fill all the available space, and postcards constrict me in a way that's both frustrating and freeing. A month or so after COVID lockdown, I decided that postcards were the answer. Postcards to all my friends. Small vignettes to brighten their day, weird questions to occupy their minds. A semblance of physical connection through the paper that I touch to write and they will touch to read. I wrote postcards every day. Sent them without warning. Didn't expect or receive responses. This wasn't the madness. 3. I should say that when I started dating Van, one of the first things I learned was that she was being harassed by another employee at work, a guy who just wouldn't leave her alone. I also worked at this place and never wanted to be that guy. No one wants to be that guy. Corollary, everyone wants to be this guy right here. Van and I dated for a few months, 3 at most. It was like quicksand, quick and brutal, and I felt I just needed to get out. I didn't want to get out of the relationship. The thing is that I just ended a 10-year relationship in the beginning of the year, and it was too close, too fast, too soon. My brain couldn't help seeing all the flaws that would cause the relationship to fail in the long term when we hadn't even left the starting line. Our relationship just fizzled, ended without any sort of declaration. Our last hangout was at a graveyard, walking a path between giant trees and making jokes about the long dead and the no longer loved. 4. The insane thing about the postcards and COVID wasn't that I reached out to Van to see if she wanted a postcard. Even though we hadn't texted or talked for months. Even though before lockdown, our interactions at work were awkward at best and knee-scrapingly painful at worst. No. The insane thing is that once she agreed to the postcards, I then proceeded to write her one every day. It was lockdown. I was trapped in my house. A friend had come by in their car and we talked while I was on the sidewalk and they were still in their car, window rolled down, and that was the closest I'd gotten to physical contact with anyone friendly since the world put itself in a box and stored itself in the closet. I wrote her a postcard every day. This was not a good idea. I was lonely and Van was the last relationship I'd had, and some parts were so perfect. She was an artist. She was a good cook and liked to cook together. She had great taste in music. And our relationship had never really ended. So my brain could conjure up the hope that we could still date, that something could still happen, that love could be rekindled because she was alone in her place and I was alone in mine. And maybe the lockdown would bring us alone together. And though Van never responded with postcards or letter and never talked about the postcards, we began texting regularly. She texted me about 2 a.m. once to have a long chat about her conservative parents and what she could do, say to them to push back against their views. She was really angry and anxious and needed someone to talk to, and chose me. Going back through the messages for this essay, I was surprised to realize that we'd been chatting consistently for months and were much more emotionally entwined than I thought. This caused the second bad idea, which was to write a letter explaining my returning feelings that had never really gone away and saying we should try again, even though I didn't know what went wrong on her end in the first place. The letter was 2 pages long.
No.
I mailed it. She didn't respond. After 2 weeks, even though I knew what silence likely meant, I asked her about the letter. Van said, "I thought being demure was enough. Stop bothering me. Why can't guys ever just take a hint?" The message was longer than that. More detailed. But that's all you need to know. Who had become that guy? This guy. 5. I've told this story countless times over the years since. There are a lot more details involved, but the end result of explaining all of them to my friends is that they all hate Van, believe she mistreated me, agree she's awful, etc. But none of them even met her. All they have is my word, and the messages we sent each other, including the last one, reaming me out for the letter. That's all you have too. But I think she's a good person. She has all the right political views, your mileage may vary, and helps other people out. She's never stopped being talented, and because we work at the same place, she's never not been around. And so, easy for me to get and move on from. 6. Van is the only person I've ever dated who, even though I know it would be a bad idea, I feel like I would definitely date again if she expressed interest. Like a black hole I'm on the event horizon of, it'd probably destroy me, but the experience of that destruction, who can even say how exquisite it would be? 7. A week or two ago, long after COVID started, I went a little insane. I went to a pool party at a friend's house. They were making brisket. I didn't want to fill up on snacks, so I barely ate a thing. I drank a lot, though. Or at least more than one should drink when one's stomach is empty. I remember proposing shots. I don't remember proposing a second round of shots. On the way home, and this I also don't remember, I talked on and on about Van and how beautiful she was, how awesome, and that if she asked me, I'd be back in it, even knowing that her kisses were like a steam shovel trying to excavate my mouth. Because, and this is true, I was sad and lonely, and maybe just didn't feel I could do any better than what I had already lost. I don't remember how my friends told me Van wasn't worth it, and that if I started dating her again, they wouldn't be around me. They couldn't let me do that to myself. I don't remember that or their assurances of love and friendship and support. I barely remember poring over Van's socials that night and then overdosing on kitten reels on Instagram. I do remember, however, feeling lighter the next morning. My friend Morgan told me all they'd said on the ride home in response to all I'd said on the ride home. And I should have been embarrassed. I should have felt ashamed. Instead, I felt free.
Let's give it up for Michael. Thank you, Michael, for reading The Story of Van by Andrew Kozma. COVID, how many of you are still trying to figure out how to relearn social appropriateness? And how many of you also wish you had a pen pal? Oh. The Tracks of My Fears, written by Anne Christensen and read by Alicia Esquivel.